Biden said about if he was president, he would want everyone to wear masks in public. What is the campaign's response to that from the presidential side?
Well, people should wear masks if they feel that's appropriate, and always follow CDC guidelines to the best they can. I would note that Joe Biden has told a lot of tales here about his recommendations for how people should respond to the coronavirus crisis. He likes to say that back in January, he was shouting from the rooftops, warning everybody that the crisis was coming. Well, if that's the case, then why did he continue to campaign normally into the second week of March? Nearly 2 months later. So his timeline doesn't add up, and he's just been desperately trying to find a role and some relevance for himself in all of this, and in fact, there isn't any. Americans can see that President Trump has been leading the country in fighting the coronavirus, including restricting travel from China way back before the end of January, a move that I would remind people that Joe Biden said was xenophobic and fear-mongering. So Joe Biden has no room to talk. He's just trying to make a political issue out of this when it really should be addressed as a serious health crisis facing the United States, and that's how President Trump has been approaching it.
So does he feel that the states or individual citizens of the United States should make the determine whether they should wear masks or not in public?
Well, that's why we have CDC guidelines. See, people should be following the CDC guidelines and really taking that advice as they live their daily lives. Absolutely, and I think you've seen success in fighting this. It's a disease that has affected the entire world. Let's not forget that. This is just not just a United States problem. This is a global pandemic that swept the entire planet. And the United States handled it very aggressively. We saw dire predictions from around the country of a shortage of ventilators, a shortage of equipment, so on and so forth. There has never been a person denied a ventilator in the United States. We have more ventilators than people who need them, and we're still building more. The approach to this and the response to this by the Trump administration has been effective. The president's goal all along has been to protect the American people. We are now at a point where there are regional outbreaks happening, and we're also rapidly increasing testing. And as the president says, we know it's accurate. If you do more testing, you will find more cases. That's just a fact. And so we need to be able to get to a point in this country where we can reopen the economy and keep people safe from the coronavirus at the same time. If you have the economy shut down for an undetermined length of time, that comes with its own health problems, separate from what the coronavirus would cause. And so America is moving forward, and it's under President Trump's leadership that's happening.
With some of these states starting to see that surge, we've even seen it here in Western Pennsylvania, a little bit of a kind of, I guess you would say, resurgence, for lack of a better term. Would the president ever move down the road to make a federal recommendation that everyone in the country wear masks at all?
Well, we understand that we are the political arm, we are the campaign, and so the White House would be best able to answer that question. But the president has recommended all along that people follow the CDC guidelines, and that is exactly what he has done. He has followed the science. Dr. Fauci himself has said on many occasions that the president has always taken his advice. And so, you know, if you're looking for what the guidance is from the federal government, I think people should pay attention to what the CDC says. That's what the White House has been doing, and that's what they recommend that all Americans do.
Okay. Obviously, with the campaign, we saw there was a political rally this past weekend. I guess that there are going to be more political rallies leading up then to the November election.
President Trump is eager to stay on the campaign trail. Absolutely. It's the way that he connects best with the American people and speaking directly to them without the media filtering and selecting which sound bites to show them. And there's a way that he can do that safely. There's a variety of ways that we have held rallies in the past. There are airplane hangar rallies, outdoor stadium rallies, and also, of course, the indoor arena rallies. And so we know that Joe Biden desperately does not want Donald Trump back out on the campaign trail, and the national mainstream media doesn't want the president on the campaign trail either, because they know how effective he is. We also know that it is Joe Biden's strategy to stay hidden from view for as long as possible, because every single time he ventures out, he says or does something dumb, and his campaign has to spend several days trying to clean it up. So we know why he's hiding. We also know why they don't want President Trump campaigning either. But President Trump is determined to keep meeting Americans, to keep talking Americans about his optimistic view for the future.
And then with these, what are some of the safety precautions you guys do take with these rallies to make sure Americans can listen to the president but do it all safely?
At the rally in Tulsa, we took a great many safety precautions. Every single person who attended the rally before they went in got a temperature check. And if a person showed a fever, they were put aside, off to the side, allowed to cool down for a little bit, and tested a second time. If they still showed a fever, they were not allowed inside the rally. Additionally, we gave every single person who arrived a mask that they could wear if they wanted to. And there was also more hand sanitizer than any large group of people could ever possibly use. The president takes the safety of the people who come to his rallies and all Americans very, very seriously, and there will always be safety precautions in place.
You say wear a mask if they wanted to, so it's not mandatory. It's up to the people if they want to or don't want to.
Well, we were in Oklahoma for that rally, which is really one of the states that is farthest along in reopening. Oklahoma was already deep into phase 3 of reopening, and they were under much lighter CDC guidelines as a result of being deep in phase 3. And so even though it wasn't necessarily required, we still provided masks to all the people who entered that they could wear if they chose.
Are there any more precautions the campaign is taking after a handful of staffers did get sick in Tulsa? Are there extra precautions you guys are now taking for future rallies to keep yourselves safe?
Well, I'll tell you how we reacted to that. Those positive tests were discovered because of our due diligence in testing people who were there on the ground in Tulsa. And as soon as those positive tests came out, we immediately implemented our quarantine and contact tracing protocols. And then everyone who came home from Tulsa tested negative again before they were allowed to get back on the airplane. And we now are doing the responsible thing and working remotely now. And every single campaign person who was in Tulsa will take a test again and test negative before they're allowed to return to work in the office.
And I know you said you guys are just the campaign side, but do you know if the president and vice president, if they're ever at a campaign rally, would ever wear a mask, or would they continue to do as they have been doing?
Well, I think the president has made his views on that pretty clear, and I will let him speak for himself.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys would like to add after Vice President Biden's comments from yesterday? Is there anything else you guys would like to add that we haven't touched base on yet?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really important for Pennsylvanians and in particular Western Pennsylvanians to know that President Trump built the best economy that any American alive today has ever seen. And it was artificially interrupted by the coronavirus. Everyone knows that that's what happened, and we already see the Great American Comeback underway. 2.5 million jobs created in this country just in the month of May. That's a record for 1 month in the history of this country. Joe Biden, on the other hand, he says the first thing that he would do as president would be to raise taxes. That means a tax increase on 90% of American taxpayers. And we also know how important the fracking and natural gas industry is to Pennsylvania and Western Pennsylvania in particular. Joe Biden is campaigning on an embrace of the Green New Deal, and that means death to the natural gas industry, death to the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are in Pennsylvania in the natural gas industry. We know that Joe Biden is going to campaign as Blue Collar Joe from Scranton, PA, and he's going to claim to be a friend of working men and women in Pennsylvania. You can't do that if you're campaigning with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and dragging the Green New Deal along with you.
Does the president plan to make any stops here in Western Pennsylvania between now and November?
Well, I can't get ahead of the White House because the White House controls the president's schedule, but I would be very surprised if we did not visit Pennsylvania at some point or multiple points on the campaign trail ahead.
And then real quick, depending on how states are doing with their coronavirus numbers, does that impact whether you would or would not go to a state for the safety of the people and the president?
Well, we always look at what the situation in each state is. That's why we chose Oklahoma, because it was one of the most open states in the country and was far along in their reopening process. And that's certainly, there are a lot of factors that go into when you're making campaign trips. Now, the president's trips that people are used to seeing on a more regular basis, those are all on the official side, and the White House plans and puts those into place. But on the campaign side, there are an awful lot of factors that we look at.
All right. I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much. You have a great weekend.
Yep. See you.
This has been a CBSN Pittsburgh special presentation. We now return to our scheduled programming in progress.
Just because the weekend starts doesn't mean our commitment to excellence stops. Wake up to KDKA TV News Saturday and Sunday morning.